It's October 13th. It's actually 7:03 p.m. Town of Southington Board of Finance meeting. If we'd all stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag. Call the roll, please.
Sure. Mrs. Zoni? Here. Mr. Morrison?
Here.
Mr. Bedoyan?
Here.
Mr. Pocock?
Here.
Mr. Lebenick is absent, and Chairman Larry.
Okay.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Just marking that. Okay, public hearing items, we don't have any, so we'll move right into the approval of the minutes of our September 8th meeting.
Second.
A motion and a second by Mr. Morrison, second by Mrs. Zoni. Any comments or concerns with the minutes? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes have passed 5-0. Now we're going to move into assessing the current state of the town. So if whatever we know on the, take the revenues and expenses together.
Sure. So we're 3 months in. Our prior year's taxes are about 20,000 under. Interest on taxes are about 20,000 higher than budget. Building permit and fees are 160,000 above budget at this point. Interest on investments were about 3,000 above budget, so that's good.
Oh, boy.
We also reduced the number a little bit, so. The town clerk fees are 320,000 above budget for the first 3 months. We have an Kerma equity and interest that was 76,000 higher than what we had budgeted. We've budgeted 50,000 on that because the year before we had gotten a lesser amount.
There's no way to better predict that.
No, it's
No.
actually a pool of all the towns that are part of Kerma, and
Yep.
they divide the pool by your ratio. So we try and get lower than what comes in rather than last year we did it the wrong way.
Okay.
And the state combined the pilot program and calls it a tiered program, and we are netting out almost 18,000 extra.
Reason for the town clerk fees. That's a large amount over.
We've had several things. Number one is the building fees go along with the town clerk fees. So when you see that happening, those two usually go together. That means new construction, that means new homes, that means filings at the clerk's office. Also, there has been some sales of larger properties. When a big commercial property sells, the fees to the town clerk's office. That office and building have been extremely busy. At the council meeting, I obviously thank Kathy and her staff and Jeff and his staff. As with last year, they've been carrying the burden mainly on the fees. Later on, I'm looking for an appropriation on the building.
Continues, yes.
And let it be
Things
so.
are, yeah, that's it. As far as expenditures go, we're right in line with what we anticipated.
So overall, we're 577,000 above, overall,
For the revenue.
at this stage, which is good.
Yeah,
It's a good position to be in.
absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Well, thank you for pulling that together. That's an important part of our meeting. I know we added that to the agenda several years back just to see, as we come in, we get right down to business, but we never stand back and say, how are things going?
Right.
And then we added that in the agenda. I think it's been a good, now it's a permanent fixture in the agenda, but I think
Yes.
we all appreciate that. The next thing we want to do is we want to review the capital projects. I see we have the list.
Actually, that's a little bit different, Mr. Chair.
Oh, this is the
These are
our the American Rescue Plan.
Exactly. So we'll handle that later on in the agenda.
Yeah, I'm actually still working on adjustments for old year, so I didn't get the first.
But it's all
quarter.
capital anyway. This is,
That's
it's a whole
also
list of
capital
capital.
projects, correct. So
All right.
hopefully
I
we'll
was
get it
close.
to you next month.
So the answer is we're doing a lot more.
We're doing a lot more, yes.
Got it.
All right, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Sewer Committee, Mr. Morrison.
Yes, we haven't had a meeting since the last Board of Finance. The meeting's tomorrow, but there are a couple of items that will be on the agenda for us to approve tonight. One is the design of the West Queen Street pump station. Be there for your approval, 142,500. And the other is to ask, and that will come out the sewer fund. But the other one is to ask, again, reference in this document, asking for the West Queen pump station actual construction to come out of the American Rescue Plan. The other three pump stations that you'll see here, in the list in yellow, the design is about, I think it's about a third of the way through, and obviously those will be funded out of the American Rescue Plan too, which means we can essentially push them quicker and for obviously less town revenues than we thought. That's it for the sewer.
All right, thank you. And it looks like they're all about just under $1 million for 4 of them.
Yeah, they're sort of, I think the next three are very similar design, so that's why they're sort of similar in cost. But we'll see. We'll see what the design shows.
Okay, thank you. And I think we also have the completion of the sewer plant too, right? That
Oh,
was
yeah, I thought
celebrated, yeah.
Hopefully I announced that last time.
Yeah, we announced that last time, but it's good.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Okay, Public Works Committee, Mr. Pocock and Mrs. Oni.
Okay, I'll take. If they decide to do something. Another issue there is that Trail Safety Working Group, and we come along to the appropriate. And was an approval.
Okay.
So it's not going to cost us any. There has been considerable discussion about other issues. Presentation was done by. And leaf bids have come in. All have used 8 of the 9 contractors that came in. Has been posted. Fire department roof.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Pocock, or
Nope,
it sums it up?
Well covered by Mrs. Bowman.
Okay. Open space, Mr. Pocock.
We have a lot going down to Lewis, Leaf. We're going to be putting a roof on there, and that should be in process shortly.
Brodsky and
Brodsky and
Leaf
Leaf.
will be going up.
And there's new fencing. The Brodsky property looks quite nice out there. Thanks to a gentleman that's nearby. We have some others, things in the pipeline, but it's not at this moment.
Okay.
I will. Okay.
Self-insurance?
For self-insurance, we have the claims data for July and August, and year-to-date for the 2 months, we're under budget by $170,000.
But not enough to make any changes. That's
No,
just healthy and,
right. We're assuming people are doing
yeah.
high point, so.
Yep.
How the demand would be, but so far, under 100. We're in the right direction right now.
Okay. Economic strike, Mr. Morrison.
There's going to be a meeting tomorrow, but it was cancelled. It's going to be next week now, so nothing to report.
Okay. Any of the liaison committee meetings, like investment committee, Board of Fire Commissioners, anything?
I don't have anything to really report on the fire department. It says they've been extremely busy there, really busy. So
The only thing.
I think we always said here on this board, when we need something, it's great to have help in achieving it. What we have to watch sometimes, and nothing regarding the fire department, when we don't need something and something's offered, we have to, really look at that with both eyes open.
Yeah.
But this was a case where we needed the manpower and the grant came along, so it was all the wind was blowing in the same direction here. It was good.
well, I mean, just to add to it, to bump it up a little bit, when these 3 firefighters come out of the academy, they're going to be down at Station 3 during the daytime, which was explained. That's a busy end of town recently, and it's a long ways for an engine to get.
Exactly. The plan is for our southern end of town, which does not have. They go into the academy in January. They come out in late, starting July 1. We hope.
So if we stand back and look, last year we added 2 police officers. This year we add the 3 firefighters.
And then we added 2 firefighters.
Yes, we did. But I think we're moving along with making sure we accommodate the expansion in the town. So if you look back, I think the plan is rolling out. Yeah, Mrs. Owen.
Yeah, there were several.
Evan, I didn't.
I think he was.
Governor was there for like hour and a half because then he went to lunch.
Good.
Our town is
He
well
just loves
respected
Sutton.
by the state.
Yeah.
They are, yeah.
And the lieutenant governor. She loves that.
Hey, they come to all our Apple Harvest parades usually. Oh, the only thing I want to add too is the Fire Commission, with the help of the attorney, they're providing oversight to the volunteer department they're drafting checks and balance procedures for the oversight of the volunteer fire department fundraising account. And I'll just read what they said. As the volunteer fire department companies are closely integrated with the Southington Fire Department and the town of Southington, it is important to ensure that there are basic checks and balances in place to maintain the integrity of any fundraising efforts. So they're not saying there's any issues
Right.
of
Yeah, we should, like we did with the
controls and
leagues
procedures everywhere, the
several
leagues.
years ago,
So
the sports leagues.
based off with some few modifications. So
Okay.
have you heard any, Mark? Have you heard anything? Is that like a done deal? Is that
Okay, any other board communications or committee communications?
Board, as far as I'm concerned, I just want to bring up the Apple Harvest Festival did very well this year, and I had the pleasure of working with Tom Lombardi and several of his helpers And talking about checks and balances, it was really controlled real well, considering the amount of everything going on. After being long ways away from it a long time, but it was really nice to see. For me to see it and bring it to this board. It's a busy time.
It's nice when it's two good weather weekends. I think that really helps every one of the volunteer organizations, all the vendors, everything works.
Great event.
People wanted to get out.
Oh, they sure do.
You could tell that they missed it from last year. I think it was really.
They want to return to normal.
And it was 2 great weekends, so.
I do want to point out, this is our last meeting as this board. We will go into the election before the board meets again. So, as the chair, I just say thank you to everybody. We're all here, and I believe we're all running again for elections. So, I wish everybody well and let the town decide. There was talk years ago about whether the Board of Finance should have a 4-year term. There was a case made that it takes several years to really learn what's going on. But then when the charter revision opened up the charter and they had the opportunity to decide whether they would go to a 4-year term or stay with a 2, the agreement was to stay with a 2. And if you were doing a good job and things were working out well, you would get reelected, and that's how you'd get your 4 years. Rather than be elected to 4 years, you'd be elected to a 2-year term twice. So that was the thinking. So these are 2-year terms, and they are volunteer. So once again, just wish everybody the best as we go through the election process, and hopefully, we're here on the other side of the election.
Well, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I mean, I like to thank everybody, starting Amelia, town manager, go back to our lady that takes care of the secretary, and everybody I've worked with here has been a real pleasure to be here.
These elections, they seem to come up fast.
That's
So.
a full-time job right there.
Well, I got myself in that trap, but that's all right.
Okay, are there any more board communications? Okay, now we'll go to any public communications. Do we have any members of the public who'd like to speak?
I would.
Just state name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Michael Krasansky. I live at 27 Hitching Post Drive. 27 Hitching Post Drive. So first, I'd like to thank the board for what they do. I know it's all volunteer, and there's a lot of hard work and time that goes in, taken away from your families and such. So thank you for all you do. This is my first board meeting. The reason I'm coming here is the following. As a citizen of Southington, I am appalled that an elected official would make the following comments online. Quote, should you get COVID and need hospitalization, may the person tending to you pretend to be a doctor and put straws in your nose for oxygen, cherry Kool-Aid for blood if needed, and a pump organ to keep your heart and lungs going. And should you die, perhaps a cardboard box from a refrigerator will do. End of quote. The town, state, and country are already at a fevered pitch of tension with government mandates regarding mask wearing, vaccine mandates, and other things related to COVID. The last thing politicians should be doing is pouring gasoline on this fire by wishing death on those they disagree with, as her post is expressing. This is not normal, nor is it acceptable. The comments are inflammatory and sickening. I expect much more from elected officials. How can we entrust the management of finances in our town to someone with extremist positions like this? I do not believe anyone wishing death on innocent people is competent to serve in any elected position in our town. In addition, I am in disbelief that Southington Democratic Town Chairwoman Erica Ragavine Byrne is defending Mazzoni's comments. Quote, "The willful choices of the unvaccinated continue to allow for mutations of the coronavirus that threaten a return to normal that the anti-science crowd have been screaming for since the beginning of this deadly pandemic." While Mazzoni's response to a transphobic Facebook post that advocates for lying about vaccination status may have been ill-advised, it represents the very real frustrations of the vast majority of Connecticut residents who have done their part to end the coronavirus pandemic. End of quote. So basically, she's saying, I'm understanding from these comments that anyone who hasn't been vaccinated is worthless and would be better for society if all of these unvaccinated people were dead. That's what I read from her comments, the person running the Democratic Party in this town. I cannot express in words how disgusted I am that the Democratic Party in town has taken this position. I formally request here that Susan Zoney step down immediately from the Board of Finance and not run again for public office in town. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other members of the public who wish to speak? Okay, hearing no more public communications, let's look at, in a long-range plan, I think we want to look over this fund allocation.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just to recap where we are up to this point, as you know, the town of Southington received approximately $13 million under the ARA funds. At your last meeting and at the last meeting of the, or 2 meetings ago of the the town council, I went through a program for which we took some of the major priorities of our capital budget and looked at the ARA program to see what can actually go into the ARA program. We went through each one and we put a schedule together. Tonight, our Public Works Director, Annette Turnquist, is here. We're going to go over our budget. We need to start doing this. Myself, the Finance Director, and the Assistant Finance Director are starting our paperwork. To no great shock, when it comes to federal money, there's a lot of paperwork that goes with it. Right. So we're going with that. So tonight we're doing our proposal. Obviously, the issues themselves of what we're doing is not at issue, but the timing is at issue. So this is what we're going to put down. Now, with that in mind, the numbers, except for two of the pump stations, the numbers are estimates because they haven't gone out to bid yet. So what happens is that obviously if we go under, there's possible things we can do more. If we go over, then we have to look at things we might not be able to do, or we shift it back to the capital fund that originally came from. So anyway, without any further ado, Mr. Turnquist, can you give us the presentation on how we're going to schedule the following? No.
And we've checked, like you said, all this has been checked to the requirements.
Correct.
So nothing here falls outside.
Right. Now the question is, in the next 3.5 years, can we do it?
Yes, we can.
The real question is, will we get the money?
we already got half of it, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead.
Okay. Does everyone have a copy of the spreadsheet? Yes. It looks like you do.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for doing that, Amelia. All right. So basically, we have 6 categories, each represented by a different color. I'll go into more detail on them, but the green is the MS4 permit. The blue is the Recreation Park Pool and Pool House. The pink represents the Parks Master Plan. The yellow depicts our pump stations. The orange is a contribution to the Water Department. And the purple is a ladder truck for the Fire Department. I'll start with the MS4. I think that might be the most obscure one, so I'll go into a little detail about that. The MS4 permit is the result of an unfunded mandate from EPA requiring municipalities to take steps to protect water quality before discharging into water bodies and wetlands. Steps we take to protect the water quality are drainage system repairs, catch basin cleaning, detention basin cleaning, and street sweeping. We do sweep the entire town every spring, but we only have 2 sweepers, and both are quite old. I think they're at least 15 years old. I'm not sure of the exact years. I'd have to look it up, but we do piece them back together every year. The mechanics do a good job. We would like to purchase a third sweeper, which was originally proposed in the capital improvement plan, but we'd like to purchase it with these American Resource Plan, American Rescue Plan funds. While all three of them function, we can accomplish the sweeping in less time. Some of you may recall we used to use contractors for this, but in the last 6 or 7 years, we've done it all in-house, so it takes us a little longer, but we get it done for a lot less money. We will still have 2 ready to go if one of them breaks down, which does happen. And then when one of the older ones finally does die, we'll still have 2 and we can carry on as we do now. Now, we also do as many drainage repairs and clean as many catch basins and detention basins as possible each year. The drainage repairs are focused on our road paving projects and also the emergency catch basins that we have to address in a timely manner. At this time, the MS4 does not require a particular number or percentage of catch basins or detention basins be cleaned each year. And thank goodness, because it's difficult to make a dent in this work along with everything else we do on a daily basis. Therefore, we'd like to concentrate on 1 quadrant per year for 4 years. We plan to hire contractors to clean and inspect the catch basins, clean the detention basins, and assist with some drainage repairs. Some repairs will be kept in-house. Once the whole town has been gone through, it will be easier for the Highway Parks Department to pick the maintenance back up after those 4 years and carry on with regular maintenance. There is also a monitoring requirement and a reporting component of the MS4 permit. All drainage outfalls must be sampled during both dry and wet weather. Each year, an annual report must be compiled and posted for public review. We were a bit behind in our completion and posting of the 2019 and 2020 reports due to COVID, but with the help of our consultant, we just posted both of those last week. So we're back on track. We do hire a consultant for the sampling and plan to continue with this, but we'd also like to have the consultant compile the annual reports as well. This is something that the engineering department has been doing, but it's just another task that has been added without additional personnel due to the MS4 being an unfunded mandate, as I mentioned in the beginning. So we would like to use, for the 4 years shown here, the American Rescue Plan funds for the MS4 activities. Moving on to the blue is the Recreation Park Pool and Pool House.
So what, question?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can.
Yeah, just a quick question. The an MS4 is just an ongoing thing by the state, looking at our
Yes.
wastewater discharge. So what happens after the end of these 4 years? We've done a lot of excellent stuff,
Yes.
but we can't continue the program in this fashion.
Well, some of the fees would continue. The fees related to the monitoring and the reporting would have to continue because we're required to do that.
Yeah, right.
But as far as the catch basin cleaning and the detention pond cleaning, if we were to go through each quadrant in 4 years, it would then be easier for the Highway Parks Department to keep up with the maintenance. If they all got a good cleaning and an inspection, we use salt now instead of sand, so the catch basins don't get as much in them. It wouldn't be as much work as what we would be faced
We
with
want
now.
to get to a point in
Yeah.
doing.
But a lot of
time
this
to
is
get that.
operations. That's approved?
I'm sorry?
A lot of this is operations versus capital.
Well, there's 2 different things. Well, it doesn't have to be capital. What's approved is water quality.
Okay.
Now, some of the stuff that's done in-house, obviously we do not use. We're giving you costs for everything here, but stuff that's done in-house, and some of this, not a lot of it, but some of this can be done in-house, that's something we don't use. But the rest of the stuff that's used for third-party contractors, that's specifically allowed by the ARA funds, because water quality is one of the specific sections they give.
Okay.
Okay. Any other MS4 questions? Okay.
No?
All right. So the blue is the Recreation Park Pool and Pool House. This was originally supposed to go out for referendum. We have for this $1,545,000, and that was based on our pool expert originally thinking that the pool could be renovated and updated and would not require a total rebuild, but that was subject to additional testing. Well, we've done the testing, and we found that the concrete is not thick enough, the rebar is not in the correct locations, and the rebar used is too small. So, unfortunately, the pools will have to be rebuilt. This means the cost is going to be more than the $1,545,000 indicated on this chart, but we don't yet know how much. I've requested quotes for the pool design, which is basically where we need to start. So I'm waiting for those quotes to come in. This also leads me to the next section, and we'll revisit the pools in a minute because they're kind of tied together here. So the pink is the Parks Master Plan. We're currently working through the 2021-22 projects, which were approved in the Capital Improvement Plan. In fact, I don't know if anyone noticed, but Tilcon has been working on Memorial Park a great deal last week and this week. There was a lot of repaving being done out there, and that's coming out great. For the rest of the years, we would like to remove these activities from the Capital Improvement Plan and use these recovery funds. This is where we get back to the pools. If we use so much money on the pools that there's not enough when we get to fiscal year 23-24, this particular year of the Parks Master Plan, or portion of it, whatever's required, could be put back into the Capital Improvement Plan. Hopefully, other things will come in under budget, and this won't be necessary, but we just don't know yet. So that's how the two tie together, and that's where we would get the money to do whatever we have to do to the pools. Okay. We talked a little bit earlier about.
I
Oh,
just
do
had a
you
quick
have a question about that?
So is the pool the top priority between the blue and the purple, or pink? You go through the dollar amounts because you said the pool could be a lot more. So
Right.
is that like top? Do you think that's the top priority?
Well, it's going
out
to
of
be,
the projects.
this is how, the priorities in the Park Master Plan are in priorities that you see. So we approved the Park Master Plan probably 4 years ago.
Yeah.
We're in year 3, and we still have 3 more to go, 2 more to go. So in this particular case, that last year of the Parks Plan, if the money is necessary for the pool, I would move that year 3 back into the capital plan.
Okay.
So it gets done, but the funding
different
source
way.
is different.
Okay.
Because right now, I'm not using any of the money we use. As you know, I've been taking the Park Master Plan out of the undesignated fund balance. We're not going to be doing that. But in year 3, which is 23-24,
Yeah.
I may have to revisit that issue with the Board of Finance and the Town Council.
Okay.
But a pool is about $2 million, a full dig out and replace?
I really don't know yet. There's a whole bunch of pieces that can go into it. First, I have to get the quotes for the design. We have to get the design done to then price out how much the construction's going
And
to
the
be.
pool house, too, Jim.
And the pool house
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
But
We-
it just seems, I mean, it's hard, it's hard for me, I don't, build pools, but, $1.6 million to $2 million for a pool seems like a lot, makes me, And
That's the beauty
Well,
of
the
the
pool
bidding
house,
process.
is that going to be
Yeah.
expanded? When you say the pool house, you talking
It's
about
gonna
the
be-
building right next to it, right?
Right. It's going to be renovated. Some of the outside walls are going to be kept to try to keep the price down. But it's basically like 3 small buildings right now, which makes the roof awkward.
Yeah.
So I think we'll try to keep as much of the footprint as possible, but make it into one building with one contiguous roof.
so what is it, just bathroom, showers, and a little office?
Basically, yeah. But some of the shower facilities are outside, so we have difficulty with the plumbing, and it needs to be updated.
So if things go right, would you expect to start the construction in the spring?
I think more likely the pool is okay, for now. We can get through another season or so with it. What I would really like to do is when the pool closes next year, be ready to start. Usually Rec Park stays open later than Memorial by a couple weeks. We could flip-flop that so we could close Rec as soon as possible and get started. But that's the time frame I'm aiming for anyway.
The good thing about a town having 2 pools
Right.
is that this will cycle off because they're not going to be able to do it in one short period of time. So we'd like to say we're going to finish it by May, but that's not probably possible. But the good thing about having 2 pools is we shift everything over to Memorial.
Dog park's not here. But I want to know what's happened with that.
The dog park wasn't listed in the Parks Master Plan. We had park improvement money for that, and there is still money in that account. So we do still plan on at least putting in like a concrete pad
We're
at
not-
the entrance.
This is our money.
Yes, I
So, yeah,
understand
that's
that.
a
So-
separate,
Yeah.
that's a separate issue,
yes,
so.
but
Right.
No,
No, you're correct. There's park improvement money,
Where
which
is
is,
that?
which is
Yeah.
actually going to, I don't think it's designed yet, though, is it?
No,
Design? Okay,
no,
it's got to get
it is
designed
not.
first,
Can we
but
get that moving, because that's ADA?
Sure.
Thank you.
right. It's on the list, but like I said, there's many things on the list. But I understand.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the dog park we've kind of been doing as we go along.
Yeah,
So.
okay, thank you.
Sure. The pump stations came up a little earlier. Mr. Morrison mentioned them. The Plantsville pump station is under construction now. That came in at $720,470, and that is coming out of these funds. The West Queen Street pump station, the bid opening was September 23rd, and that, with the contingency, is at $980,000. I think that's on your agenda for approval tonight. The other three, Old Turnpike Road, Patton Brook Pump Station, and the Judd Brook Pump Station, we're going to handle those together, and you can see the estimates listed here. Those are supposed to be going out to bid in May or June and awarded in July or August. And like I said, we hope to do all of those together because we do have a limited amount of time to do all these projects and use the money. Any questions about the pump stations before I go on?
No.
All right, and then the last two items are, I guess, a little simpler than MS4 anyway. The orange is a $900,000 contribution to the water department for a lead removal program that they have. And then the last item is the purple, and that is for a ladder truck that the fire department originally had in the capital improvement plan.
The reason why, the first thing you ask me is why is it structured that way? Because we'll get a percentage if I front load it. We get a percentage off. I don't know what the percentage is yet because we haven't seen the contract, but that's why I put it this way, because I anticipate getting some percentage off the total purchase price if I front load the payments.
So is it in design?
No. What happens first is that after the chief, I got him off the excitement after I told him what the plans were. He has a committee that designs the trucks, and they're doing that right now. I think he mentioned January or February that should be completed. Then we obviously we use the federal program for trucks, especially ladder trucks, and then that will come back to this board, and it comes back to the town council to move forward with the contract. My understanding is that they're about an 18-month build-out. That will not hit the streets. Probably, we're talking about 2 years from now, would hit the streets. Well, it'll replace the ladder truck for a frontline truck. We have the ladder truck now, which will then go into reserve. We're getting rid of the other ladder truck, which is our current reserve one, which the current ladder truck is, I think, between almost 20 years old. So I don't even know how old the reserve one is, but this then shifts into the reserve category.
Okay, and
You remember that temporary building we put up?
yes,
do you?
I
Yeah.
do, and it wasn't tall enough for the truck.
Well, that was that.
We want to make sure that
The good news is that we'd already been approved for the addition on Station 1 headquarters station, so we sat out there until the addition was finished. So yes,
Thank you.
you know those darn inches versus centimeters. You know how that stuff works.
Yeah,
It's like the Hubble space.
yeah.
So overall, our plan is to have all this completed by the end of fiscal year 23-24, with exception of the MS4, because we want to attack that in quadrants, so we need 4 years for that.
I have one question.
Sure.
It's what's not here as opposed to what's here. We're going to be spending money on the library, right? Bonding for it. Or if it's not passed, then we've got the issues again of the mold, the HVAC, go through everything, which I assume will have to be addressed sometime. I don't think we can keep pushing these off forever. So one way or another, there's going to be an expenditure. Some sense of that being coded here now.
I'll attempt to answer that question. Libraries themselves, to the best of my knowledge, are not for ARA funds. I did not see that in any of the categories that.
Oh, I assume they were. Sorry.
Unless you, yeah, I've not seen that in any of the categories. So,
Okay.
That being said, to answer your question, if the referendum does fail, then yes, we'll have to revisit the library. But this puts us in a little better position, especially with undesignated. Not going to run the referendum, so we'll be talking about doing improvements.
Thank you. Thank you, Annette, for being here and going through this with us, and Amelia for helping
Thank
put
you.
it all together. Much appreciated. Okay, now we'll conduct the administrative business. I want to take all 4 appropriations together.
Somebody wants you badly.
So in the consent agenda, and so everybody knows, the consent agenda is cases where money's already been received by the town, and all we're doing is appropriating it back to the line item where it belongs. So let's take it in 4 pieces. We have an appropriation for $4,000 to the turf field fund for contracted services, an appropriation for $32,000 for education operations, an appropriation for $15,000 for planning for affordable housing plan grant, and an appropriation for $12,891 for youth services for a youth services enhancement grant. Do I have a motion to approve all 4?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pocock, second by Mr. Bedoin. Any comments?
I just had a question, Mark. The turf fund. I know we haven't talked about the turf in a long time, and when we bought the turf, there was supposed to be like a maintenance fund that was being supposed to be funded yearly to use for future maintenance. Where was that funds coming from? Was it from
Was
the board?
ticket prices from the Board of Ed. There was a $1
Okay.
ticket fee, I believe, for the football games. There's clubs that use it. There's tournaments that go on there.
Yep.
So yes, there is a fund there, but obviously it's not going to be enough to cover the cost eventually when this happens. So based upon the capital plan from the BOE standpoint, you're probably going to see that as part of their entire field improvements, which will probably show up in 23, possibly a referendum in 23.
So they'll need a whole new turf field, right?
Not a whole new turf field, because remember, everything's done, the base is done.
No, I
So,
mean
yeah,
the turf.
It's a lot cheaper.
The carpet on top.
Exactly.
That's
It's a
what I
lot
meant,
cheaper
'cause-
doing it that way. They take up all the
Because
stuff.
it's been about, what, 8 years, 9 years?
I know
it's
they're
been a
good.
while.
They're good
It's still
about
in good shape.
They're good to about 12 years, so
Yeah.
we're getting close to that.
But I know it's still in good shape, so
Yeah.
it's been well maintained.
So
let's
I
put it
think
that way.
in this particular case, as I said, next year, I expect to see the schools plus the improvements to the roofs that have not been finished yet, the high school roof and possibly another elementary school roof, Hatton probably. That'll be on your referendum for next year. And then the following year, remember, under the issue that we had with Title IX, they have to improve all the fields at the high school, and that'll be another referendum probably in 23. That'll probably be included in the 23 referendum.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the consent agenda carries 5-0. Now we have 4 more items, and we'll wrap it up. A transfer, $5,000 to the sewer fund for regular wages.
Mr. Chairman, if I could explain
Yeah.
this. The superintendent has the ability to increase some hours for his administrative assistant, and right now she's at part-time, and we're going to add some more hours to that to help him.
Okay?
So
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Oni, second by Mr. Pocock. Any questions? Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
That carries 5-0. Number 2, an appropriation for $142,500 to the sewer fund for from the sewer fund to the West Crane Street pump station design.
Tony already explained this is
Yeah.
going to be for the design of the West Street, actually the oversight of the West Street pump station design. Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the appropriation of.
Second it.
Motion by Mr. Bedoin, second by Mr. Pocock. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0. Appropriation $20,000 building department overtime.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, obviously with the positive news about the fees getting from the building department, the negative news is the fact that we have to keep the building department operating, and right now we've been falling behind on our building review and permits because it's so busy over there, so I'm asking for $20,000 additional to overtime.
Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the overtime.
Second it with
Motion.
discussion.
Yeah.
I know it's 20,000. It doesn't look like much, but that place is buried.
Yeah, I did speak with the,
I mean, if I get any complaints out there when I'm around, floating around, which I am, even the fire department to look at these plans to make them all safety.
It is. It's time consuming. We do have a decent sized staff, but it's the fact of the matter is we are so busy, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that the public understands that even though we're getting a lot of applications, we still want to process them as quickly as possible to keep people happy, and that'll be what the overtime is going to be used for.
Is there any way to prioritize some and deprioritize others? I wonder two things. One, if we have legitimate permits and we have to go out and do the inspections related to those, that's a work stream. But then we may have work going on without permits, stuff just happening. I assume when legitimate permits pile up and people are doing things, that there's some stuff being done without permits. Are we facing that battle on both fronts?
Well, it's a whole issue of things. Number one is the building trades are big here in Southern. Other part of it is that if any of you are buyers' attorneys and buyers' banks hiring a search of every property to check out building permits. So now you have a home inspection, and the building permits are looking at that, and there are occasions where building permits are open and never closed, which means now the building department has to go out and inspect something that took place 5 or 6 years ago, or more common, stuff wasn't taken a permit out at all. So you got decks, you got additions, you got stuff that was not. So now the house can't be sold until the building department goes out there to inspect, and you got to understand how the calls come into my office on that. Oh my God, we have a contract to sell our house. We need to sell our house. Yeah, but we also say, but you should have probably got the permits in the beginning. And sometimes they say, well, it wasn't us, it was the previous owner. But the fact is, we have to try and make them as happy as possible and still keep everybody else, because the last thing somebody wants to hear is, well, some permit was under more time stress than yours. Nobody wants to hear that, so we're trying to do all of that. So,
do we have a lot of cases where work wasn't done up to the proper specifications, and therefore they were not worthy of a CO or a positive outcome?
Well, that doesn't happen that often because the inspections go out at a certain stage. On new construction, you're out there at a certain stage.
But
So
these decks and these things you talked about,
decks-
things that just got put on, did
sometimes-
you ever have some fail? Then you have people very angry that they're trying to sell their house and they have a
we've had some that,
substandard deck.
We had some that were built substandard, and the seller is required to either work out a separate cost with the builder or the buyer, or do it before they sell the house.
Especially
So-
electrical, and some of them that people.
Yeah,
Wired them
let's
once they
be
were
honest. A
built.
lot of people finish their basements and don't get permits for it, and then they go to sell their house, and the home inspector says, "Well, you have a finished basement. I checked the building department. There are no permits for that." So now you got plumbing, you got electrical, and now you got to get a permit for that. So now you get a permit, then the inspection has to go out. We don't want to tear down walls, so we take out the strike plates and see if we can see what kind of wiring's in there. It's hard on us, but the fact is, it would be so much easier if you got the permit when you did it. But that's all part of it. Every town does the same thing. We're just a lot busier than most of the towns right now.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Oh, Tony.
Oh, no, just
Go
a
ahead.
really quick question. Would adding money to this sum do anything about the backlog? Adding, instead of 20 grand, it's
Well, I asked the director what I needed for this to get that backlog out of the way, get us back down to 2 weeks turnaround time, and he asked for $20,000.
Thank you.
But I put a reference on that. If it gets busier, I may be back on that. But it's money well spent considering the money that comes in from that department.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the last one we heard about it, the appropriation $980,000 emergency management fund for the West Queen Street pump station.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Oni, second by Mr. Pocock. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's approved. Okay, now we look for our favorite motion.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned at 7:53. Thank everybody.